It's a 2003 Honda Pilot, Honda's biggest SUV. Now superficially, you can see the chrome over here. That chrome fell off. It is here on the back, but on the other side, you can see that chrome fell off. Basically, that's just plastic crap anyways. It's not metal. You can hear it. Now, in this case, the owner isn't bothering to put it on. For one big reason, because he doesn't care. His brother gave him this vehicle when it had 80,000 miles. Now it's got 100 something on it. So he got the best deal on earth. But this Honda Pilot is not like the Trojan horse. It's not a free gift that you wish you'd never let into your castle. This thing's in immaculate shape. As we look inside, the leather seats are still in pretty good shape. It's got everything on it. Cruise control. Sunroof. All-wheel drive, you can turn on and off and even lock. Even a little bit of chrome that hasn't fallen off. And as we go into the back, a lot of room in these babies. He's got the seats down now because he wanted all this space. But the seats are quite comfortable. Big 3-row seats. And check it out. This isn't economy. This is a luxury vehicle. It's got the air conditioning, the heat, the cigarette lighter power outlet. Okay, the hood liner looks a little bit like a tent. But like I say, he doesn't care. And listen to the door when I shut it. That is a solid vehicle. And it's old school, so you gotta actually physically pull the handle. Look at all that room. This baby's got room for hauling stuff. There's no arguing that. This baby's a real people carrier. And as you can see down here, you can tow. And Honda had a pretty good idea who's buying these things. The towing rating is 3,500 pounds for a conventional trailer you're towing, but 4,500 pounds if you're towing a boat. You know, quite a few people buying some nice big vehicle like this are going to have a reasonable sized boat they want to tow. This thing can tow it fine because under the hood is an ultra reliable 3.5 liter variable valve timing Honda engine. It's 18 years old. It's got over 100,000 miles on it. It still doesn't burn a drop of oil. Honda knew how to make engines back in the day for sure. This baby doesn't have any of that modern gasoline direct injection turbocharger. It's a naturally aspirated engine that can last and last. This one's barely broken in. And then you might ask, what about the transmission? This has a 6-speed automatic transmission that is notorious for not having any problem. It's got rear-wheel drive and it's got all-wheel drive if you want it. You can push buttons to use it when you want and just use 2-wheel drive when you don't. Because this is a big, heavy vehicle, if you use it in just the 2-wheel drive mode, you're lucky to get about 17 in town, and the max you're ever going to get is 22 on the highway. That's why the all-wheel drive system that you can turn on and off is better. You would lose a couple miles per gallon if you had an all-wheel drive system that was on all the time from the extra friction and the extra energy it takes to drive it all. It's a big, heavy vehicle, yes, and it's reasonably quick, but it's a gas hog, like all giant 3-row vehicles are, really. At least the ones that are going to last like this, and like the Toyota Sequoia, they're made to last. Listen to Scotty. Don't go out and buy one of those big ones. It's got a little bitty 4-cylinder engine with the turbo and GDI. Yeah, it can have 300-something horsepower, but it's not going to last over time pulling all that weight with a little bitty engine that has a turbo and GDI injection. This V6 puts out 240 horsepower. And yeah, it's no race car in a big vehicle like this, but it certainly gets down the road, especially once you're ready moving on a highway. You got to pass people. It's got plenty of passing power. I'll show you with a little ride. And like any Honda, you get in, turn the key, no surprises, starts right up because this baby's barely broken and it's got 105,000 miles on it. Idling, you can see we're at idle speed. You're gonna notice one thing. This is quiet and smooth. This is one quiet, smooth vehicle. You feel very comfortable and safe in a stable platform going down the road. And it is a Honda product, known for performance. For a big vehicle like this, it actually handles quite well. They've done a lot of tricks to the suspension on this thing to make it ride well. Now we got an open road. Let's see how it takes off. We got it in drive and we'll floor it. It moves the car back, shifts like a dream. You can hear it runs good. Look at it idle. You take off. The transmission shifts like a dream. It may be 18 years old, but it sure doesn't feel it. Man, did he get one heck of a deal getting it from his brother for nothing. Absolutely free. Look at you, step on it. It just goes. Honda technology at its finest. You can cruise down the road in this thing all day. Your back won't get sore. It's nice and comfy. You're high enough up in the air that you feel really secure. And then when you have to corner, it's not sloshing around like some of these. It's got nice, tight Honda suspension. And brakes. Here we go, an idiot. And you can feel a few bumps going down the road. This thing still has the original struts on it. They've never been changed. But when you're driving, it doesn't feel bad. The cornering is excellent. You don't feel like you're losing control. Works great at higher speeds. It is one solid built, large, 3-row SUV. It's a Honda, so the AC still blows, cold as can be. I'm sure the fan's a little loud. It could do with a new motor, but hey, freezing cold AC in a vehicle the guy got for nothing that can run forever, just like the chrome plastic pieces that fell off, he doesn't care, he's living with the noise. Now odds are you're not going to get a vehicle like this for nothing like my customer did. Get one with a low price, in good shape as this one is, you're getting one heck of a deal. I've seen these things with 300,000 miles on them, and they're still going pretty good. This baby's only got a little bit over 100,000 miles. He got it for nothing when it had 80,000 miles on it. And you know what he's put into it? Nothing except for oil changes. That's a Honda for you. The truth about the Mazda B3000 pickup. Here's the Mazda emblem. But let's open the driver's door and look inside. What does it say here? Manufactured by Ford Motor Company. For Mazda Motor Company. So in other words, this Mazda B3000 is in reality a Ford Ranger pickup truck. Check under the hood. Tony put one of these dumb cold air intakes on it, but it goes to a V6 engine, which is a Ford Vulcan V6 3.0 liter engine. That's why it's called the B3000. It's a 3-liter engine. Now, it's a very conventional engine. It's V6. It's got cast iron block, cast iron head, push rods, and 2 valves per cylinder. Puts out 140 horsepower, which is enough to move this little pickup truck around, especially since it's got a standard transmission behind the 8-ball here. Now, it's a pretty basic pickup truck. Got a decent bed on it. You can haul a reasonable amount of stuff with it. This one has a decent spray-on liner. So, even though it's getting older, it's solid. You can see the bolts are rusty, but the bed's still in good shape. Now, Ford and Mazda have been collaborating for decades. Some like these, the B3000. It's a Ford Ranger with the Ford engine, a Ford transmission. They just had deals going back and forth. Now, basically being a Ford Ranger, this was manufactured in the United States. If you were buying this and thinking you were getting a Japanese vehicle, no you aren't. You're getting a Ford Ranger. And they can be decent trucks like this one that served its owners well. It's 17 years old, has 198,000 miles on it. And truth be told on this one, the differential here is starting to wear out. It's starting to growl, which is typical when they get that kind of mileage on them. And the owner's probably gonna just drive it until it drops. It might still go quite some time before it finally goes out. Now, you could have a full differential rebuild done, which might run you anywhere between $800 and $900 if you want to fix it. Or if you're more of a gambling man or have luck in junkyards. I had a customer a couple of years ago buy a used rear end, the whole thing, for $250 from a junkyard, and the truck it came out of, he said, had 15,000 miles, was smashed in, and it worked perfectly fine. Even though it says Mazda, it's a Ford product, so getting parts, there's a lot of them out there, and you got a lot of choices of what you can do. Now, as a used vehicle, these things can be decent. You can get them cheap enough, and they can last a while. But when they were brand new, really, they weren't that much of a deal. To give you an example, the list price of this vehicle was $16,500 when it was new. And at that same time, 2003, you could have picked up a comparable Toyota Tacoma for about $800 less. And yes, the Toyota Tacoma is a much better overall truck in terms of longevity, needing less repairs, a little bit higher technology. But just try finding a good used Toyota Tacoma cheap. That's not an easy thing to do. If you only have a few grand to spend, getting one of these used might be a better idea because you can find them. It's going to cost a lot less than a comparable Tacoma. After all, these are pretty basic vehicles. V6, cast iron block, cast iron head, push rod, simple technology, and they're not bad vehicles. And if you can get one for a cheap enough price used, it can be a great secondary truck for running around with. After all, a small pickup truck is a small pickup truck. They all look the same. They look like small pickup trucks. And you can see, 17 years later, the body's still in excellent shape. Even the fancy rims that it originally came with are still looking pretty good for all that age. Now, of course, having the V6 engine, even though it's a standard transmission, these aren't gas Mazdas. This particular one gets about 17 in the city and 21 on the highway. You don't get great gas mileage with pickup trucks, especially when they're a little bit older. But that's not what you buy pickup trucks for. You buy them to haul stuff. It's got a decent sized bed. With a standard transmission, it's pretty easy to haul reasonably heavy loads. And with that V6 engine and a standard transmission, it can tow 4,000 pounds, so it's got towing capability. All in all, it's a decent little pickup truck, especially if you find a good one used at a decent price. Just realize it's not a Mazda, it's a Ford. It's made by Ford in the United States. So if you were looking at one of these Mazdas and a Ford Ranger pickup truck, realize it's the same thing. You could buy either one, you'd be getting the same vehicle. We're going to give you the whole rundown on Scions now. This is a 2011 Scion TC. Now, it's been through the washing machine. The man who owns it drives like a maniac, gets road rage all the time. And the only one problem it had was the engine blew up. But you can't blame the car. He got road rage in it going 80 miles an hour, and he inadvertently downshifted into first gear. Of course, the engine blew up. They can't rev that high. So we had to put a used engine in it, but it runs great now. No, they don't make Scions anymore. A lot of people say, oh, you don't make a car anymore. It's a bad car, don't buy it. Completely wrong in the case of Scion. Toyota just decided, for some bizarre reason, that young people don't like Toyota, so we'll make their own brand and call them Scion. Now, I understood why they made Lexus, because most people are like, oh, who's going to pay $50,000, $60,000 for a Toyota, so we'll make fancy ones and call them Lexus. That I understand. But why would you want to low brand a Toyota to sell it to young people and call it Scion? It just didn't make any sense to me. But they did, and Toyota marketed the heck out of them years ago. You could see music stores, there'd be a bunch of young people there, and they'd have music blaring, giving them free Scion test rides and stuff. They marketed the heck out of them. And they are actually pretty good cars. Take the Scion TC, for example. It originally was a $19,000 car. It's got a nice 6-speed transmission, a zippy 4-cylinder Toyota engine. For that price, you were really getting your money's worth. And at that price, you were even getting these 18-inch wheels with the fancy alloy wheels on them. These things were a real bargain. Check under the hood. Metal. This isn't a plastic Hulk like the new ones. For your money, you actually got a metal engine set up. It's all metal, it's not plastic junk. Now you can see, this does have junkyard writing because this is a used engine. As I said, you can't blame the car, that was the driver. Road rage to go 80 miles an hour and downshift into first gear. You can do that in just about any car and it's gonna blow the engine up. Didn't hurt the transmission though, it still works perfectly fine. And of course this is a sport version. A lot of people bought those boxy Scions if they didn't mind a boxy vehicle. They were quick little vehicles too. I still don't understand why Toyota gave them a different name. I mean, didn't sell them as Toyotas, because that's what they're doing now. They no longer make Scions, but they make the same cars, they just call them Toyotas instead. So even though they don't make them anymore, it's no problem getting parts for these things. They're all Toyota parts. They're not all that expensive. These are fun cars to drive around in. Why oh why they decided to make a different brand name for them and then cut it out is beyond me. But obviously it has to do with sales. 2006 was the high point of Scions. They sold over 173,000 in the United States. But 2016, they only sold 12,000. The numbers just weren't there, so they decided to ditch the whole Scion experiment. So these Scions are part of a relatively rare phenomenon. A solid, well-built vehicle that failed. People didn't buy enough of them. Now, some of it just has to do with it's a two-door sedan. Two-door sedans in the United States are becoming less and less popular. Everyone wants an SUV with 4 doors and lots of space. There's one reason they went out. And this particular one is a 6-speed standard transmission. 93% of Americans don't even drive standards anymore. So there's a market that they're not selling to. As you can see inside, they're pretty snazzy. Got some nice chrome, black, nice instrument panel. Even got the face mask here. It's got the dual sunroof set up on it. And when we check the back, as you can see, it's a two-door, but there's a reasonable amount of room in the back. It's not bad at all. And we go to the back, you can see it's got a pretty serious trunk. It's a hatch. The seats can move down. You can get a lot of room in these things. Once you empty all that stuff out and put them down, you can carry plywood, whatever you want. They're very utilitarian for a hatchback. Now this particular one's got 180 horsepower and hooked up to a 6-speed standard. It's really quick. If you were insane enough, they offered a TRD supercharger kit that would bump it all close to 300 horsepower. You wanted to soup them up, you could soup them up, but they're plenty fast the way they are. They're not slow cars. They handle quite well. As I say, my customer that owns this gets road rage, is a little too wild, you know. He also has a Harley Davidson that he drives, so he's a little bit on the wild side. But this thing, amazingly enough, has held up. He had a Honda before he had this, and the Honda didn't hold up as well as this. The transmission was going out on the Honda because it couldn't take his driving. This transmission has no problems at all, even though he drives like a maniac. As you can see, it's a very quiet car just sitting here, and we'll see how it takes off. It's got some power to it. You can feel the bumps, but it's a sports car. This is a luxury limousine. It's made to handle, and those big 18-inch wheels hold the road well, but they're not made for a smooth ride. And as usual, ice-cold air conditioning, even though it's old. So as you can see, it's actually a pretty high-performance little car. If you ask me, they pretty much made a perfect little coupe. And for 19,000 bucks, that isn't much scratch. Take a Honda Civic Type R, great little race car. Hey, you're gonna pay 40-something grand for those things. Not $19,000 when they were brand new. And even though this thing's 10 years old, it's still real stylish. It's not something that goes out of style. It's a nice looking car. It's very aerodynamic. They're actually very handy cars. But with everybody having this big excitement for SUVs these days, a lot of sedans and coupes, they're just not making anymore. Honda just said that they're not going to be making their Civic sedan anymore. They look at what they're selling, make what they sell. The ones that don't sell well, they just drop them. Toyota just decided to drop the entire line of Scion. They still make the same basic vehicles, they just give them a different name. Toyota had such a good reputation. I can understand American car manufacturers like Dodge. They don't make Dodge Rams anymore. They make Rams. They have their own name. They want to distance themselves from Fiat Chrysler as much as possible. Why would you want to distance yourself from Toyota when you're selling quality cars? Especially to young people. They knew Toyotas were good. They grew up with that. Why would you make something else? I don't know. Somebody had a little brain fart going on there. And I guess if you look at it, Toyota's never really been a sports car company. They make money selling regular cars, and with their Lexus division, luxury cars and SUVs to people. They were never a real sports car company. Look at their Supras now. They're just rebadged BMWs. Their other sports cars, they're just rebadged Subarus made by Subaru. That's not in their business. And I guess they just decided, they don't really need to make this little Scion sports car anymore. But they're great cars. If you can find a good used one and get a good price on one, hey, that could be a killer of a deal. And this one is a 6-speed standard, and since 90-something% of Americans drive automatics, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the automatics. They are extremely dependable transmissions that they put in the automatic Scions. I have customers have 350,000 miles with the original automatic transmission in a Scion, and they still shift perfectly fine. And the only thing they did was change the fluid every 50-60,000 miles. They are low maintenance cars, just like Toyotas. And as I said, even if you're gonna buy a used one and they don't make them anymore, there's no problem getting parts for them. It's not like you're buying a Yugo and you can't get parts for it. You know, it's a Toyota. Plenty of parts are interchangeable. And there's such an aftermarket too for them. You can go to places like AutoZone, get brake pads. That's what I'm doing now, putting brake pads on. Where did they come from? AutoZone. You know, I mean, you can get parts cheaply enough for these that work perfectly fine. Don't worry about unavailability of parts or Scions, because they're still readily available. So now you know the truth about Scions. You can't buy a new one because they don't make them anymore, but if you're looking at a good used one, it could be a fantastic deal. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.